What did your friend do that accidentally turned you on? As a guy, I decided to fall asleep on a close friend's lap, who then proceeded to stroke my hair and lightly pulling it. It was really hard to fall asleep cause I was more worried that I'd get a boner from that. This one girl started tickling me. When I started tickling her back, she started to moan and said she was sensitive there. Awkward drive home. A friend of mine I had a crush on sucked on my fingers, as a joke kinda. Then someone told her they do it in porn all the time and she never did it again, lol. Held my hand for a few seconds. Just happened a few days ago. She was driving, and we held hands for a while. I'm still evaluating why that had such an impact on me. A group of us went to a firework display, and during the usual louder and bigger finale fireworks she jumped, grabbed my arm tight, and didn't let go. Not sure what happened inside me, but yeah, that did it. I offered him a sip of my drink, and he made intense eye contact with me as he slowly put the straw in his mouth, and took a nice long sip. I found it kinda weird to be turned on so much by him sucking on a straw, since I don't have a dick. We've been dating for over 2 years now. I had this friend that, while having long phone call sessions, she used to talk to me in this seductive sounding Colombian accent, and called me bizcocho, which is cake in Spanish. Never thought being called a dessert would be hot. Or maybe I'm just weird. We were neighbors. She just kicked out her ex-BF, and we lost power due to an ice storm. The power was restored later, but her heat wasn't working right. She called it in, but the maintenance people were busy with calls to fix heat in other units too. We were hanging out at my place watching movies and basking in my heat, though it was still chilly. So we were sharing a blanket on the couch, snuggled up together, and drinking whiskey. She passed out on the couch, so I put on an extra blanket on her and went to my room. About 1 hour later, she walks into my room and just falls into bed next to me, gets under heat covers and snuggles up to me, and says I'm cold and passes out. I dunno, maybe I felt wanted, and that she came to me for comfort. We didn't hook up or anything. The next morning she woke up, and she made me breakfast, and went back to her apartment to get her heat fixed. He was driving, and I was riding shotgun. He had to reverse to parallel park, and turned his torso towards me, putting his arm around my seat in order to look back. He did that so confidently and effortless that it made me feel a little funny. A colleague friend took care of my wounded knee during work. We were alone in the canteen, and he was very sweet and caring. Guess I'm not used to that. He still does this. He takes my shopping bags and puts his hand on my back as we cross streets. I'm short and I have a limp, and he's so kind and caring about it. Edit. My phone has been blowing up today. Wow. Quick fact. I asked him out 3 times now, about 2 years apart each time. I was very politely rejected. We are great friends, and I'm happy with that. He's a joy to have in my life. The limp is from a very serious injury I had a few years back. I'm not actually a grandma, but I do love tea and crochet, so make of that what you will. I'm not abnormally short. I'm just regular, can't reach the top shelf, and my feet don't touch the floor from chairs short. His worried jackasses in giant pickups won't see me. He's not wrong. I've had a lot of near misses. Thanks for the kind words. I'm at work, so more applies later, but I'm glad my wonderful friend's kindness made others smile too. He's cool like that. I remember a girl classmate friend liking the smell of my deodorant and just grabbing onto my arm, and then proceed to walk beside me. My back is an erogenous zone for me. Whenever a friend of mine gets too huggy, I need to quietly extract myself from the mayo. Was talking with a coworker and her friend walked behind her and tugged her hair as a joke. Her reaction was a quick lip bite and eyes rolled up. It happened so fast, but I had to walk away for a moment. When he flicked between languages whilst talking on the phone with his mother and then asking me to pass him his wallet, I knew people could switch it on and off like that, but I've never seen the flow quite as effortless. Ruffled my hair. It wasn't that big a deal, but she was one of my close friends, and that just, wow. She dried my motorcycle seat with her sleeve while I was putting my helmet on. She was my female best friend at the time. We went out to watch A Star Is Born. She rested her head on my right shoulder. I was on cloud 9. I miss her. We used to do this thing where she'd kiss my cheek whenever we said bye. She kissed my neck on accident because I moved. I think someone distracted me at a party. That's one of my sensitive spots. And yeah. When I was a freshman and taking a 6 AM class and going to practice an hour after school, she let me take a nap with her lap as a pillow and played with my hair. Shit was so relaxing. Also, another girl got drunk and nibbled on my ear and I was like, oh shit. Gonorrhea grabbed my arm as we were walking. We were going to a picnic with our classmates. This was in 10th grade. I'm doing second year of college now, and we were in this deluxe gigantic bus. We actually played hide and seek in the bus. Anyways. So while we were playing, I crossed my legs and sat down under one of the seats. And a female friend of mine came to the same spot and asked if she could hide with me. I agreed and she lied down and placed her head on my lap. But her head was exactly on my penis. It kinda turned me on, but I was trying really hard not to have a hard on and creep her out. Luckily, my efforts were not in vain. I still keep in touch with her and actually mentioned this to her a few months before COVID hit. She admitted that she knew she was on my penis, but didn't want to move because she thought that would make me feel awkward. We had a good chuckle, and we are still good friends. He and I were watching a movie when he gave me a hug. While hugging me, he gently ran his hands up and down my back. He didn't mean anything sexual with it. I on the other hand have a very sensitive back and was severely turned on by it. The next day he made fun of me for being ticklish. I then admitted to the truth about that. Needless to say, he did it again later. We've been dating for over a year now, getting close to 2. I told her a joke and she smiled so much, looked at the ground, then gave me a "you're so funny" look. I honestly wanted to date her since then. It's been 3 years, and I'm still thinking of her. Not really a friend, but my first boyfriend, when I was still finding out how attraction works, pulled the collar of his shirt and leaned his head to the other side because he wanted to scratch his neck. IDK. I probably had some fetish for collarbones and necks. Mayo. Was very cavalier about getting changed in front of me. She was pulling me like aggressively but playfully. There came this weird comfort I had never felt even from my parents. Lol. Girl was really affectionate and hugged everyone. When she got to hugging me, I was really awkward, so I admitted that I had never hugged a girl before. She said, and I quote, "It's fine, I'll be your first time." All my friends were laughing at how that sounded, and high school me was rock hard. 3 years ago, we were once on a school trip, and we went to the woods, and I went with my other friends into the deep woods. We were all boys, and we got a little lost. She went out alone to look for me, and when she found me, she just hugged me and whispered in my ear, "God damn it, don't do this again." What the hell would I have told your parents? And my dumb fucking ass just laughed and shrugged and pretended like my heart didn't explode that day. Well, anyways, 3 years later I confessed, and I'm sleeping right beside her now, and she has no idea I'm writing this. I was making coffee in my AeroPress for us, and pressing slowly on the top of it, like you're supposed to, when she shouldered me over a little, and leaned on my hand, to push it down faster. It was cute as fuck, and I'll never forget it. At the school dance, a friend who I had a crush on came over, and sat on my lap, despite there being plenty of free chairs next to me, and just casually had a conversation. She asked me to touch her thigh. She was very proud of them after working out. Little did she know I really like thighs. We are engaged now. Sat beside each other. She laid her head down onto my lap. I went into panic mode and promptly jumped in my seat, making her sit back up. I was having a drink with an old friend a long time ago. At a point after a brief pause, she just looked at me, smiled and said, "You're very handsome, you know." It got a little quiet, awkward, and we carried on drinking and chatting, and soon it was like nothing had happened. But from that moment on, I never failed to notice the striking glow of her eyes, and my feelings became slightly complicated and conflicted. It didn't last, of course. Just bizarre how a compliment can change a perception, especially for us men who receive so few. We barely speak anymore. We are both married, and she has a son. Of course I love my wife with all I have and all I am. But there's always that memory. I've never forgotten it, and imagine I never will. I have never been ladylike. So I was play fighting with a friend and he pined me down, and shocked me a little. I still think about it sometimes. Didn't do shit, but we were rock climbing, and the rope was too tight, so he helped me untie it, so he got close enough for me to catch his smell and he actually smelled so good. Instant turn on. Might seem weird, but it is what it is. D. And no, he wasn't sweating. BC, he belayed me. Probably wasn't accidental, but I was drinking with a friend of mine one night, and she was bitching about her boyfriend at the time. I had always been interested in her, but I also respected it when she got into relationships. Even though I really didn't like this guy she was with, she said she was gonna go to bed, and that I could crash on the couch, since I had been drinking. She started stretching in front of me, and said that she always stretches before bed. Now I wouldn't have questioned this, but she was sticking her ass right in my face, and she was getting into some pretty suggestive poses on the floor. She went to bed, and the next day thanked me for letting her vent. A lot of people told me she was trying to fuck, and I should went for it, but she had been drinking, and had a boyfriend, so there were 2 red flags for me to not even try. We were in a theater with a group of friends, and while watching the movie, she would put her head on my shoulder and talk to me about how PPL come to theaters to kiss lol. I got the butterflies in my stomach, but never acted on it. It was later on when I realized how dumb I was for missing my chance. He jumped up, grabbed a fire escape ladder, pulled himself up, and climbed all the way to the top. Just oh dear. That's how I learned I have a thing for people climbing / pulling themselves up. I was in 6th form and all of our friends, male and female, were sat in one of the small rooms. There wasn't enough seats, so people were all sat on each other's laps. One of the girls was sat on my lap. This in of itself wasn't very arousing. She was a very quiet girl and just a friend, so I didn't think much of it. During one of the group conversations someone started singing, so, as you do, we all joined in, singing and doing a jig. I was bouncing the quiet girl on my knee while we all sang. She leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Can you stop bouncing me on your knee? You're making me really wet." Well, I didn't stop, but I also didn't stand up for a good 30 minutes. We were sleeping in the same bed after a night out at our friend's flat, and she told me to spoon with her because she was cold. Have this friend of mine. One day at home, while we were drinking with some other friends, she started singing. At that moment I looked at her and didn't just see my friend. I saw a very attractive young woman. I sometimes still see that moment when I look at her and shake the thought away. Multiple things. First, in a party he danced with me and lifted me in the air. I'm not thin, and not many people tried this with me. Then on a trip we made with friends, his cousin made a tent using sheets and a bunk bed. We went inside to read manga on his phone. He put his arms around me so we both could see the screen. Before anyone asks, he wasn't into me back then, but now we've been together for nearly 4 years. When she put her hands on the back of her neck while leaning on the table and her eyes never left yours while listening to you. Instant turn on. A friend of mine used to sit on my lap when we'd run out of chair hanging with other friends, and she'd move her hips to find a comfy spot, but goddamn it was hard on me to find a way that my little John wouldn't poke her in the butt, which did happen a couple times, which would be followed by her giving me the smile and shifting just a little more and saying something coy. Another time was when we were hanging out while I had a really loose tooth. She was getting annoyed at me pushing at it with my tongue, so she pushed me to my bed, straddled me, and reached her hand in my mouth to tear my tooth out. From the sounds being made, my groaning, the bed shaking, my dad came up to make sure we were alright, then saw us sweaty, her on top of me, face right up to mine, and thought we were about to do it lol. After she used that as a distraction enough to yank my tooth out, I had to go downstairs to stop up the bleeding, and managed to explain to him what had happened, to which he looked mildly disappointed, and I think his headcanon to this day is that I had sex with her, or at least some light over the clothes action. I slept over my friend's house because it was late and I didn't feel like driving home. She walks out of the room to change into what she sleeps in, which was a sleeveless band shirt with holes in it. The armholes were stretched and showed side boob, no bra, and just underwear bottoms. I made a move and we are married now. She insists to this day that she had no intention of seducing me. It's just what she's comfortable sleeping in. We were sitting on her couch watching Thor Ragnarok. Finished our Chinese food. She went got a pint of Ben & Jerry's out of her freezer, and she sat sideways half on my lap and took turns taking a bite and feeding me a bite. It was oddly intimate, but she'd made it clear she was convinced if we started to date we'd end up married, and she wasn't sure she was ready for that. 6 months later we were dating. 6 months after that we were married, coming up on our 2-year anniversary. Had a friend who got a tattoo on the back of her neck. Decided to kneel down in front of me so I could see it. Never been so happy for willpower in my life. Last thing I needed was her turning around to find a tent. Best mate's girlfriend and I got along really well. I got along great with her parents. I was sitting on the couch at her parents' house watching motorsport with her dad. She sat next to me, fell asleep with her head on my shoulder. I was okay until I could hear that cute little breathing noise coming from her. My mate broke up with her a month or so later. I was far too dumb to pick up on the many signals from her. Really cute girl I had a crush on sat on my lap on the school bus headed home because there weren't enough seats. This same girl also told me I don't ever ask guys out because that's their job. Holy shit, I was so stupid. The last guy I had a crush on, he was my boss. He was walking and folding his sleeves the same time, and I was looking at him because it was such a simple thing, but damn I couldn't work the entire day. I had to call a friend to calm down. Lol. Great. Now the crush has resurrected. D. We were both drunk at a friend's house party, and I playfully pulled her hair to get her attention. She gasped, and then gave a happy little moan. What made it hotter was the way she gripped the seat of her chair with both hands, and encouraged me to do it again, and so I ended up playing with her hair all night. I still think about her gorgeous bliss-filled face, though sadly we never took it any further. My high school crush was sitting on a table during class and pulled me close to her and wrapped her legs around my waist to not let me leave. She was in cross country, so her legs had some decent power on them. Right after, she grabbed my arm and gently bit my forearm. Little did I know, she awakened 2 new things in me. I was the friend. She had hosted a party with our friends. We had been on the same beer pong team for a bit, and I had been jokingly giving her a hard time about missing some shots, to which she responded by saying that she'll slap me, an inside joke. It would have been hard. I stared at her, and she raised her hand to so, and while maintaining my gaze, I quickly grabbed her by the wrist, and held on for a second before letting go. She quite literally said that turned me on, and then asked if I heard what she said. I said yeah and continued playing. In high school a girl I hung out with changed clothes in front of me on the basis that well you've seen me in a bikini so whatever, and I was like yup. A girl I became friends with on a school trip in high school fell asleep on my shoulders on the ride back. I'm 28 and I'm still coasting on that memory. When I was a junior, I grew my hair out and had it cut to a 10-inch toe. I'm sitting in class one day and my classmate behind me starts gently running her fingers through it. I melted into my chair. I'm terrified of being choked, having people touch my neck etc. after an incident where I was attacked and raped. I thought I would spend my whole life with that being a really serious never ever touch my neck kind of thing. Which it was, for several years. Until my best friend, who is this 6'7" monstrosity of a human, playfully leant their hand on my neck. Yup, so it turns out I just needed it to be someone I trust, in a non-sexual setting, to unlock the ability to be turned on via neck being touched. God damn it, brain. So close, but so far. She sat on my lap, sang Hey There Della Lap, and every time she was with her friends and I rolled up they all stood there in silence and watched us talk. Then I got cancer, never returned to 6th form. and get into uni 4 years later. The same university she just enrolled in to do her masters. I was once speaking to this customer and I couldn't understand her because of her thick Russian accent, so my coworker stepped in and started speaking fluent Russian, and I swear it was the hottest thing ever. I definitely have a thing for accents because that shit was putting me in some type of mood. Fuck. The question should have been, when did you miss obvious signals that your friend is DTF, judging by all the replies? We were in some math class in high school, and she was tutoring me mid-class. She was leaning over next to me as I was sat down, and she had her hand on my back. She was almost whispering into my ear how to figure out this problem. Something about her voice was so soothing and arousing. It was very sensual, and I still think about it often. Nothing ever happened with her. We grew apart after school. Something very similar happened at my job recently though, so it brought me back. She was the popular girl in our class. She said I love you to me as a friend, I think anyway, or I'm just incredibly fucking dense. I didn't like her, but it still made my heart flutter. This was 5 years back in high school. A female friend and I were put in a group together for a science project. We met up after school at her place because no one was home and she didn't want to drive over to my place. As I was sitting on my laptop and reading, she scratched my forearm with her nails to get my attention. Man, her look in her eyes and the scratches. I still remember that. I was in a Discord call last week, casually playing Overwatch with 2 of my female friends, when one of them suddenly starts moaning sensually. What I didn't know was that these 2 had a running gag where they would just moan at each other and kind of dirty talk at random moments. For me, M23, it was particularly difficult to stay concentrated on the game since that moaning and dirty talk is my particular fetish. I just had to restrain myself so bad to keep both hands at the mouse and keyboard. Then they kinda started teasing me with it, which nearly drove me mad. A close friend from uni pulled my ponytail firmly enough to get my attention because I didn't hear him call me. Had to catch my breath after that. We're married now. I had a friend lick my face as a joke because she was one of those girls that thought they were quirky or different for acting like a weirdo or something. It was like freshman year of high school Ike. It was definitely strange as hell, but Jesus Christ did she awaken something in me. I wasn't even particularly attracted to her. I was just licked, and I felt the arousal creeping in, and I'm standing there like, oh god, oh fuck, please don't get a boner, fuck no. There was this one incident where me and this pretty girl went out for a long drive. We drank a bit, and on the return she was tired and put her head on my lap while I was driving. Pretty sure she felt my dick. Not a friend per se, but a random stranger. I was checking out at a drugstore. I gave my phone number for the reward system and immediately we started chatting about where we were from. Turns out we grew up about 40 miles or so from each other and discussed what it's like being so far from home. When she handed me my change bag, we held hands for a few seconds too long, and that is probably the closest thing to intimacy I've felt in a very long time. Asterisk. My female friend in school 10 years ago, who was in my clique, decided to adjust her bra in front of me, cupped her boobs and adjusted them. I was like, oh my god. Done. Look at her. I found restraints on his bedposts from an encounter with an ex and made fun of him, then asked him how they work. Instead of telling me, he proceeded to put the ankle restraints on me and threw my legs over his neck and showed different ways he could fuck me. I've known this dude since I was a kid and he's family to me, but I instantly wanted to drop my panties and say fuck our childhood. Let's ruin a friendship. So that's how I found my kink in college. I was sitting shotgun, and he was messing with me in the chair behind me. Stuff like grabbing my shoulders, pinning me to the seat by shortening the seat belt, stroking my hair. I was beat red, but I didn't tell him to stop. We are dating now. He's the sweetest person I've ever dated. I feel really lucky. Not very subtle, but she spontaneously pulled her pants down to tan her legs while we were chilling outside. When she suggested doing it, I was like, oh sure, assuming she had shorts on underneath. Oh no, Victoria's Secret panties. I laughed and said dude we are outside, but in truth god I was turned the hell on. She wasn't the brightest friend but that's what made hanging out with her so fun. Mayo I miss pre-covered times. I was off from college for about a week. I came back, and a friend of mine who I hung out with every day ran up and hugged me, but as she hugged me, she jumped and wrapped her legs around me, and we were just looking at each other. Should have just went for it but alas, I only realized after the fact months later. If I could go back in time I'd punch myself in the balls. We went for a walk, and she told me she was tired and demanded a piggyback home. And she rested her chin on my shoulder, and there was just something about having her gently breathe on my neck as well as having a conversation with her whispering into my ear. Back when we were in school a girl who had a crush on me pushed her ass into my crotch region in a bit of a grinding motion, while we were standing in a crowd of other students. She turned around and winked. I'm an ass man, so I was shooting ropes to this for weeks. A few years ago me and a friend were goofing around, making flower crowns on a grassy knoll. She decides to roll down said knoll, and as she does her shirt rides up, and I can see the sun reflecting off that little line of hair that goes down from the belly button. I swear time stopped and all of my blood vessels woke up at once. The sun was shining brighter, the flowers smelled sweeter. It was as if I briefly stepped into a more perfect pocket dimension. It was then I knew I definitely was not straight. Sat on my lap and was shifting around. For reference, I'm a girl and it's making me wonder if I'm actually bisexual. Haha. Friend in college with double D's pulled me in for a hug while I was sitting on the floor working on a project. My arms went around her waist and she pushed my face right into her chest. I couldn't concentrate on my work for a little while after that. Lol. Guy here. Senior year of high school. A guy dares me to give a massage to my girl best friend. When she sits down, I start giving her a shoulder massage, which I've been told I'm very good at, and she lets out a couple of soft moans and completely relaxes. I had never really been attracted to her until then. Then I stopped, and she slumped back, tilted her head back. So I was looking at her upside down, and she said don't stop. So, that was some feelings I felt. Close girlfriend always used to come over and watch a movie / YouTube and get high and hang out. One day we were watching something and she wanted to turn the audio on the TV down. Without looking reached her arm out to grab the remote, accidentally grabbed my crotch. Put her hand on my upper thigh, and as her fingers wrapped around I got hard enough that it touched her hand. She looked at me with a bit of surprise in her eyes, and then she winked. Update: after the wonderful super and loving advice of everyone I decided to bring it up with her to ask about a relationship. She said she is open to that. When we'd play video games together he'd do this voice thing to tease me. Not sexually, just poke fun. He'd lower his voice and get really sugary sweet and say stuff like oh hun what's wrong, or it's okay puppy, no need to be embarrassed. It drove me freaking crazy and he probably knew it. Anyway, we are getting married on the 31st. I had a friend who I hung out with during high school. We would make our homework together and always study together for the big tests. She was attractive, but I never looked at her that way. One day when we were in the library studying, I noticed that she wore a different perfume. When I asked about it, she came very close to me and made me sniff her neck. I never knew that I could get a boner so fast. After that, things went further and eventually we got married years later. Lol. Didn't try to take advantage of my drunken ass when I was clearly signaling for a kiss. Not getting a kiss back made me appreciate that friend a lot indeed. She was really curious about herself. Basically she told me that she never had any sexual urges. I was like well some people just don't, and thought we would go on a talk about the science of sexuality or stuff like that. We liked discussing a bunch of topics together. Lo and behold, the next thing she told me was all the different ways she tried to masturbate, from fingering herself to inserting phallic objects and more. I was taken aback and got turned on from it. Drive me home late at night. It was not for me, but for a friend of ours. My house just happened to be on the way. I still have the crush up until now. I'm pathetic, I know. Another friend likes to put her legs on mine when we sit down, and sometimes she accidentally touches my pages with her knee and she says oops. I'm a girl and I have a boy best friend. After 4 years of friendship he requested we should hug. The first time we hugged it kind of turned me on. I later realized we were also spooning, when I a small girl was the big spoon. When I worked in a restaurant the head chef was the type who was very particular. His way was always right and he was bossy, but he was also super nice / funny to it balanced out. He essentially just had a very dominant personality. I would call the garlic toast garlic bread, because I didn't see much of a difference, and while we were rushing that's the name that would come out of my mouth. It was kind of our thing, to bicker back or forth. We had fun, and laughed with it and it never had any actual tension. But one day I yell for some garlic bread, he's holding it in his tongs, and is about to give it to me. When he says call it garlic toast I said okay I will. When he goes, no, say it now. Call it garlic toast, I want to hear you say it. So I start giggling, and say okay chef, to where he once again in a very dominant way says no, say it. Once I cracked and laughed then said it. He smiled and good girl. Y'all. The sub in me has never been happier. Former coworker on base, close to 18 years ago, had been trying for an entire year to get in better shape. She had always been pretty, but just wasn't happy with what mirror showed her. A year of swimming, running, and lightweight training later and holy shit. I was talking to her and she stretched, arms above her head, and her sweater lifted up to her ribcage showing all that glorious tummy real estate down to the hip bones. Apologies, ma'am, but I may have had many impure thoughts about said tummy real estate since. Side note, we were very not interested in each other romantically, so no, this wasn't a sending messages kind of gesture. Damn. I came back from freshman year college to visit high school, and walked into the auditorium, where an incredibly cute girl I was friends with saw me, stopped what she was doing, and literally ran up the aisle, and jumped into my arms to hug me. Plot twist, married 26 years, and have a son. My husband and me have this male friend who gives amazing massages. So, I'm really turned on by kissing or massaging in the neck area. So, this one time the friend gave me a neck massage, and I was so turned on that my husband and me had our first ever car quickie on the way home. My friend was once telling me about ear kissing, with tongue and everything. I laughed and said, that sounded gross and uncomfortable. She did it to me, and oh my god. I can't remember the scenario that led up to it. I think there was something on my back she was helping me get, but she brushed the back of my neck, and that was the day I learned that I have a weak spot. Heterosexual male here. Male friend of mine was responding to a question another friend asked, and my eyes met with his. He gave me a quick wink, which was never a thing he did, and it caught me so off guard. I later caught myself giggling and swooning at the move. This is a girl I slept with a few times, and not just a friend, so I'm not sure if this is fitting. Once I, 24 meters at the time, invited myself to her, 22F, and her friend's girls' night to watch The Bachelor, and it was everything a girls' night should be. Various snacks, extended couch with seemingly thousands of pillows, blankets, and plushes, white wine, pajamas. We ordered MC Donald's and talked trash about all the girls on the show simping for that one totally overrated guy. But the girl in question, the one I had occasional hookups with, was wearing a unicorn Onishi as a pajama. Nothing special, nothing obviously sexy at all. If anything, it looked comfortable as hell. But hell, something about it made me go crazy. All I could think about was her in that Onishi. I even suggested a few times for her to wear it in bed, mostly packed in some kind of joke. We always laugh it off, but I don't _T think she realizes that I'm way more serious than I _D admit. My friend was looking for an earring she dropped on the ground, and her hair got in the way, so she tied it up. I don't even know why, but that turned me on so much, and it's how I discovered I might be bisexual. Gave me a slow back hug out of nowhere. We were drinking, and her hand slowly circled my waist and leaned in. She was a bit tipsy, and did that cause she was feeling sleepy. I froze and hoped that she doesn't hear how fast my heart was beating. I still get flashbacks whenever we hang out, and I try to avert my eyes. She put her head on my shoulder while on the bus coming back from a school trip, especially because we'd just met a couple of days before. Unfortunately, she lost interest in a few weeks after that, so we don't talk anymore.